Hey, everybody, welcome to the MD Power Hour, starring me, Ron Harris, and of course, all the way from the United Kingdom, from Tiger Towers Estates, Giles, Tiger, Thomas. Good evening, good morning, whatever time it is over there. How are you?
Ron, I'm absolutely exhausted. Do you want me to tell you why?
Tell me why.
Well, I can definitely say my front and back garden looks absolutely immaculate. It looks like something out of a magazine, mate.
Wow.
So,
Did you hire a crew? A
no,
gardening
it's,
crew?
it's all the pointing to the gardener to tell him which bits he's missed.
Ah, I mean, that's what I do. I got a lawn guy, and I say, "Oh, I'll clean that up over there." But
Yeah.
you also have a hedgehog. Is that the wild hedgehog?
Yeah. Yeah, I've been feeding. He's back because I had him in 2020, and he was coming almost every night. And in the end, he was coming up to the studio door. You know, by the studio,
Yeah.
literally wanting to be fed. I got him that tame, and then one night I had him, and it was like a double-sided dish. And I looked out in the middle of the garden. There was him on one side, and there was Mayo, my ginger cat, on the other side. Like literally, so they were all one big happy family. But yeah, I haven't seen him for well, if it's the same one, I haven't seen him for 3 years. But he's returned now, so I'm absolutely over the moon. So I've been out every night, like at 1 o'clock in the morning, and with my phone and trying to with the bottled water and these hedgehog crunchies and tuna cat food because they like cat food, the good quality one. So yeah, I'm over the moon, mate. I'm really happy Mr. Wombleface is back.
The womble face, assuming it is the same hedgehog, but it could be. But what the heck? Where was he for 3 years though? Somebody else's garden?
Hibernating.
Oh wow, every 17 years they come out of the ground to reproduce or something. These hedgehogs, but
Maybe it's a zombie or something. I don't know. Walking Dead zombie. The hedgehog.
yeah. So I hate to start off with bad news, but we have to pay respects and tribute to Gustavo Bedell, who passed away at only 50 years old. Gustavo, I know some of the younger viewers really they might not even know who he was, but early 2000s, he was phenomenal. He took third place in the Olympia 2 years in a row, 2004, 2005. Those were years where Ronnie and Jay were 1 and 2. And in 2005, he was part of perhaps the greatest debacle, spectacle that the Olympia ever had, the challenge round. So people don't know because it was only that 1 year. Remember the challenge round?
Not 2004.
I think it was 2005, but regardless, whichever. So the challenge round was, I think the top five guys before the pose down in the awards and all that, they did a whole other thing with different judges, and every guy he was allowed to pick, I believe, three poses of his choice, and he would be scored on if he could beat those other guys. And somehow, even though Gustavo ended up third overall, he beat Ronnie
Yeah.
Coleman and Jay Cutler and won the challenge round. And it was so confusing to a lot of people how this guy could beat them, but be beaten by them in the actual contest that they scrapped it. It was a one and done thing.
I think, sorry, I'll talk about Gustavo in a second, but
Yeah.
in referring to that, I think it's about as confusing and about as much of a success as an idea as the People's Choice Award at the Olympia, which I
Yeah.
cannot understand. And also the we know what I'm going to say next, the Most Muscular Award at the Arnold Classic, which I think 20 years on, 25 years on, I think none of us have still got a clue what that even is. I mean, I think you could ask 10 different people and get 10 different answers. But anyway, yes, he did win. But I was saying to Milos this morning, and I said, Milos, I said, do you know what? I said, I think if we had, say, a power hour discussion of us talking about the greatest leaps, I said, go watch the 2002 Olympia, where I think he was 22nd out of 25. And then look at what he did in 2004. I mean, imagine, like, I'm not, was he even in 2003? I'm not sure.
I don't know, but you're right. He was somebody nobody was looking at. He was like a last call out guy.
I mean, Ronnie did it where he started at the back of the pack, but it took him like several years. This guy did it in. I mean, I remember like NASA from '94 to '95. There's things in our head where guys have taken big kind of leaps forward. That's something we should do in a power hour. We should talk about biggest improvements, like say one like Dennis Wolf from 2006 to 2007 didn't place top 15 and then fifth place in 2007. Arguably should have been higher. Really should have beat Ronnie that year. Could have been, first, second, or third, those huge improvements. And Gustavo, what he did, I mean, I forget how many pounds of muscle it was, but he didn't just get bigger, he got more condition. I mean, he just basically blossomed into this top three Olympia guy, which, really is like, that's quite an achievement to go from the back of the pack to like first call out, and you're beating Ronnie Coleman and Jay Cutler in these rounds, these types of things. you know in 2 years. I mean, that is absolutely phenomenal. He won the Pro Ironman as well. He looked very good at that in 2005. Milos actually posted the pictures today, and it ran, you know, under that beautiful Ironman lighting. Mike never used to do the lighting, but
Yeah.
I tell you what a fantastic physique. Very, very complete. I never knew him. I never interviewed him. He's one of the ones I would have liked to have got. I think I did message him once. He
Mm.
didn't respond, but yeah, he's someone that yeah, he had kind of it was like Mustafa Mohammed. They have a brief sort of 2 or 3 years of absolute brilliance, and then they kind of dropped off quite quickly. But my God, 2 third places at the Olympia, and if he didn't prove, I know you can't really get a third place as a fluke at the Olympia, but he certainly rubber stamped it the second year by coming third place again. So what a legend! And I saw a picture of his daughter. He was holding up on stage at the Ironman in 2005, and I was thinking this morning, I was thinking, gosh, she must be in like her early 20s, and she just lost her dad.
Yeah.
So my heart goes out to the friends and family, and everyone, because he was, you know, like certain bodybuilders, they're like sort of in certain countries, like Christian Loborati. They were saying, is it Chile or Peru in his country?
Chile.
He
Yeah.
was, you know, they don't win Olympias, but you know, in their country, then their respective country, they're real sort of, there's a real pride, and they're revered. So Puerto Rico, you know, obviously has lost, you know, one of their kind of, they're probably their greatest ever bodybuilder anyway.
Yeah. I saw him for the first time. I want to say it was 1997 or 8, whatever year the Caribbean and Central American Championships, IFBB, they were held in Kingston. Was he in the Kingston one? I went 2 years. I went to one's in Jamaica, and I think he was in the one in El Salvador, and he was a junior, and he
Wow.
was probably about 180 pounds, 185. He couldn't have been much more than that, but you could see everything, the structure, the muscle shape. You could see this. He had a lot of potential. I said, this kid Gustavo, and he was representing Venezuela. He was competing for them on their team. So if this
Mm.
kid fills out, he could be pretty good. I think it was only like 3 years later I started seeing him in the open. He ended up, that's where he got his pro card as an open bodybuilder a couple years later and started. But
He
yeah,
was
he was
very,
phenomenal.
very complete. I loved his back shots. His big, I mean, even though he was very complete and everything was very balanced, he had nice big thick triceps. Like he's one of those guys that, you know, there was a lot going on and there wasn't really anything lacking. He was kind of kind of reminds me, like I say, a bigger Kamal. Do you know what I mean? That kind of, everything's there, every single angle, every single pose, you know. And like I said, that 2004, 2005, I mean, those 2 years, I mean, guys, if you're not familiar with this guy, go back and look at those pictures and videos, you know, YouTube, whatever you can find, because I tell you what, this guy was, he was serious. He was really good.
Rest in peace, and yeah, condolences to his children. I think he had 3 or 4. I'm not really sure,
Oh, right. It was,
but I had seen.
I believe it was a stroke or a heart attack, I think Milos said.
Yeah, I'd heard Dr. T told me he was on dialysis at one point. He had a. I just read Lonnie Teeper did a little tribute to him on Facebook, and he said his sister had given him a kidney a couple of years back too. So yeah, I mean the kidney was the main issue, but we don't know. It's but 50 years old, very very young. You know, you're almost 50. You know, you still feel young, and you don't want to. Well, you know, you've you cheated death last year, so
What?
you appreciate it more than most people. So let's move on. Before we get into Vancouver Pro, we had a big show in Portugal. It was the Big Man Evolution, and Andrea Presti from Italy got his Olympia qualification. And he was a defending champion, correct? I believe
Won it 3 years in a row.
3 years in a wow.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I managed to, because that's why Global was a day late. I managed to get him, and I said to Mauro Sassi, his coach, because I said, "Look, guys, you know what I'm ringing for, messaging for." I said, "Can we please get him?" And he says, "Look," he says, "Monday he's traveling back." He says that's going to be iffy. He says, but possibly, so definitely Tuesday. And I said, well, look, rather than literally rushing through the door after traveling and putting his bags down, I'd rather get him when he's relaxed another day to kind of acclimatize. And I'll just push the episode back, because I've been getting these winner interviews with Laszlo Corelli and Phil Clayhar, you know, and obviously I wanted to keep the run going, you know. But it was I thought, do you know what? When I was actually doing the edits, you know, dropping the edits in, showing the pictures from when he was next to Crizzo, because I did like a picture montage as he was talking about it, I'm starting to realize just how big this guy is.
Andrea, I mean,
He's huge.
he's a little under 6 foot, I believe. Or
Right,
say
yeah.
he's about, yeah, I think what's he about 260 on stage, maybe more.
I'm sure he said 120, 121 kilo, 125 kilo. I think 121 kilo. I think he said he was at, but he was, I think he was 3 kilos heavier than he was last year.
Wow.
It's funny because I disagreed with him, and he says, "Oh, he said in Spain." He says that was, in fact, I put an edit over it so you can't see my face and his face because I'm going, no, 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 because I said, he said that was my best condition yet, and I went, what? No, no, it's not. Remember, like when I said Lunsford, you said Lunsford winning the 212, you only got fourth. I'm like, what? No, 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 stop.
Yeah.
And it was really, it was funny. And then he kind of didn't acknowledge it. And then he kind of went, well, I said, no, I said, my reason is, I said, you looked like you needed another 2 or 3 weeks. I said, because I have seen you, because your condition is really, really good. I said, yes, your condition was good. I said, but I know you can be better. And that is basically what he brought to Portugal. This was the biggest and the hardest I've ever seen him. And I'll tell you what, this is a question I was actually going to bring up in Power Hour, but I'm doing it now in the Power Hour. If you look at actual shoulder to waist ratios, who in the Pro League today has a greater shoulder to waist ratio? I mean, really think about it. Like, the differential.
I'm going to go with 3 Nigerians.
Who?
Andrew Jacked.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Good one.
Samson Dauda. And
Yeah.
Quinton Area, Quint Beastwood.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's good.
So
I'm struggling to think of any,
if we take Nigerians out of the equation, I really can't think of him.
Italy wins.
Italy wins. Yeah. No,
I tell you what, I mean, it was funny because they had the camera angles because they had a really good live stream and they had that side camera angle. And I think I saw more on the side camera angles that told me more about their conditioning and their physiques. Certainly on Andrea was the conditioning and the separation in the shoulders and the glutes. Him and Amir Omaragic, who was third place, I just couldn't get out. I mean, literally, when those guys have peaked beautifully. But as a top 5, I think all top 5. Andrea disagreed with me over Peter Clancy. He said he'd seen Peter sharper in 2015 or something. But I think for that whole top 5, that was all their best ever conditions I'd ever seen them in. And Amir Omaragic, remember I said drop 7 to 8 pound. I says, and you'll be top 3 in Portugal, because he got 8th. He was 8th out of 10. I think it was 8th out of 10 in Spain. Yeah. Apparently he dropped 11 kilos.
Wow.
11 kilos. I mean, if you've seen that picture I posted, the radial bicep of Amir, I mean, his condition was unbelievable. I mean, that was because I think he really did blow it in Spain. And I think that obviously really hurt him because, I mean, he really wanted to do well in that show and he bombed out. Even his face looked kind of full and puffy, And but tell you what that kid did in 3 weeks, I mean, that was impressive. I mean, third place. I mean, he's like, I hate going on about the age and stuff, but he's 24 years old.
I mean, the Americans, I got to translate. That's about 23, 24 pounds in 3 weeks.
Well, 11 times 2.2, yeah, 24 pounds. Yeah,
that's amazing. That's crazy. So that's 8 pounds a week.
24 pounds.
And he was already in reasonable condition, not spectacular condition, but. Yeah, and Roman Fritz, man, he really pulled it out.
Second place. Yeah. I'm still not completely sold on the hype around this guy because there is so much love around him and so much interest. I think he's good, but I think Andrea won this quite clearly. But second place for Roman Fritz, that's a really good placing for him. That's obviously because he said he gets a lot of anxiety and a lot of I think he feels a lot of pressure from social media because he does have quite a big fan base. Yeah. And I think maybe there's a lot of, obviously with a big fan base, comes great expectation and responsibility, and I think he's one of these guys that it really gets to him. So I think he really felt the pressure for this one. So he must be really happy with the second place.
Yeah, and I don't believe has he ever placed that highly before in a pro show?
No, he's consistent in that he always makes top 6.
Yeah, I mean, I remember him getting like 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th. I don't remember him ever being second. So
yeah, he's going to be happy with that. I mean,
in the comments, there's some Roman Fritz fans in the comments. Leave him, correct us if maybe he's won a pro show, but I don't believe so. But tell us, guys, if we're wrong.
Also, another thing, it's like they have because Jose's had a hip replacement, hasn't he? How did they do it? Because I can't see any scars. I can't see any. How is he able to train like to the level he's at now? Because his legs are still fantastic. I mean, it knocked him out for a year or something, I think it was.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't understand how you can have hip replacements and then there's been no scarring or.
Well, I imagine I'm obviously I don't know much about the actual surgical procedure, but maybe the scars are in places where your posing trunks would cover. Maybe they cut right on the hip bone and dig. I don't. They must chop out your hip. I don't know how they do it. It sounds brutal and
Wonderful.
medieval, but yeah, but Jose's out of pain. He has no more pain in his hips. He could train the way he wanted, legs the way he used to if he really wanted to. There's no reason. So I think once they do a hip replacement, if you want to resume your normal style of training and all that, you're fully able to. It's titanium. It should be able to bear all kinds of loads.
That was my next question. Is it plastic or is it metal or so titanium, I suppose. Yeah, that's
I could be wrong because I'm maybe now, every few years there are advances in all these procedures,
yeah.
which is like why I'm waiting on a shoulder replacement because they haven't figured it out yet. They're still toying around with different types of, they call them implants. So I'm waiting for like the best one to come out, which is, maybe I'll be like 100 years old.
Can you do any heavy shoulder pressing now? What can you do now for shoulder? Because your shoulders look good. You've obviously worked around it really well. But what are you limited to now?
I can't do free weights at all, nothing. With this arm, I could do a 100-pound dumbbell overhead if I wanted to. This one, 10-pound dumbbell, like, oh, I can feel it right now.
Wow.
Laterals, I can do laterals as long as I have to keep the form good. But the only presses I can really go heavy on, and heavy being a very relative term, machines with this kind of a grip, a neutral grip.
Yeah.
This hurts. I can use that grip, but not very heavy. This grip I can go heavier, but that's like almost all front delts. So it's a lot of laterals.
It's
But I
funny,
miss it.
maybe it's to do with my height or whatever, my sort of arm length or whatever. But if I was to have shoulder pain, I wouldn't get it on free weight movements. I'd get it on machines. I'm the
That's
other way around. I think like say with free weight movements, I actually feel more like barbell squats. Like if I'm ever going to get like say I do Smith machine squats, if I'm going to get pain in my hips or my knees or my back or anything, it's going to be from a Smith machine or a machine. Never a free weight.
you are an anomaly, Tiger. I don't know.
So
Uh,
what about your what about your other body parts? Can you train those all
I
fine
can't.
without any?
No, I can't do any presses. I used to be a very strong presser for chest and shoulders with dumbbells, especially. Can't do that anymore. Dumbbells, anything past like it's this shoulder because there's no stability. The cartilage was worn out about 12 years ago. So it's just been bone grinding on bone. I have the x-rays and all that to prove it. But it's just excruciating pain because it's like I can hear a ratcheting sound.
Oh,
It's the bones rubbing together, grinding, making like bone dust inside my body or something, bone fragments. I
have
also
you
have a big bone spur in back of that too, but that's secondary compared to the major problem. Who
have you ever tried shark cartilage?
Yeah, I've tried everything.
Oh, okay.
Right now, I'm finally on that BPC 187 peptide. Uh, I just do one little serving. I do it right in there. I try to go as close to the joint as possible, minimal amount. I couldn't even tell you the milligrams and stuff, but I'm trying to see if that helps. I need a replacement though. It's just going to be like a Band-Aid. Like I used to get the cortisone injections, and those took the pain away for completely for three to 6 months, and then it always came right back because it was just like a numbing, anti-inflammatory type of thing.
Does Deca and GH help?
I believe so. I mean, because I ran out of GH for a couple months, and the pain was getting worse.
Yeah.
Now I'm back on two and a half units every morning, and it's not as bad. I don't have the excruciating. Usually because I do shoulders and chest together. I do shoulders, chest, triceps, a push day.
Yeah, it's warm.
Typically, it would hurt, and I do that 3 on 1 off. So push pull legs off, push pull legs off. Typically, the pain would just start to be subsiding almost by the time it was ready to train it again. So I'm not experiencing that anymore. It's not. But let's move on to Vancouver Pro. People don't want to hear about my shoulder all day. So this Vancouver Pro, it's a very small lineup, guys, but the dramatic feature is this is Hassan Mustafa's last stand. He has said on his social media, this is it. Three shows. If I don't win this, I'm done. And I think we were trying to figure out if he meant, am I done for the season? But I think he means if he doesn't win this, obviously he's not going to the Olympia. But if he wins this, he missed the Olympia last year. I think he's definitely going to go to the Olympia. But let's talk about his odds of winning because he was second to Ian Valliere, which I don't think was controversial at all once I saw all the pictures and video. And he was just second in Orlando to who won Orlando? Help me out.
Hmm?
Orlando. Who won Orlando? Phil Clahar. Phil Clahar. Very well deserved win there. So this is it. He's only got 5 other guys to beat. Can he do it? Looking at this lineup, he's got a very, very, very strong chance of winning this show. And if he doesn't win this, I'm not going to say I'm going to write him off, but I'm like, if he takes second again, my God, it's going to be just brutal, brutal. So let's hope for Hassan to win this, Giles. What do you say?
That poor guy, man. I mean, thing is, I mean, like, you look at the judging results recently, it's all 333, 666, 999. Everyone's unanimous. And then for completely out of the blue, you get Phil Clahar. Who was it? Who was winning at prejudging? No, Hassan.
He was first place.
Yeah, straight first. And then like a few hours later, you know, I mean, he could, if he'd have had like a little sneaky peek at the judging sheets, he'd be like, yeah, I've got this in the bag. Or if somebody like went, I've just seen the sheets, you know, you've won it clearly, mate. You've got it easy. And then a few hours later, imagine coming back on stage and then you hear second place and you hear your name. I mean, could you imagine just how devastated you'd feel? Because, you know, I mean, and also this was like, I mean, Hassan's really, I think he's really leveled up in terms of his physique. I really like what he's brought this year. And it's funny because someone was saying, like, oh, I don't like his condition. And it's like, what? Have you actually seen the picture? Have you actually zoomed in? Like, I think he's got like that, like, you know, I call it voluptuous muscle. You know, I said this about Akeem Williams. Like when you see him sat there relaxed, if you see like his arm, like it looks almost like, I don't want, it's like it's almost so full and so round. It's until they actually flex, it looks soft. And I think because he's so packed with muscle, I think he's got so much muscle, it makes him look soft until he flexes. I remember that with Ronnie Coleman when I saw him at the 2004 British Grand Prix, because some of those guys from the Olympia afterwards would come off their diets and, you know, the big names, and they knew that they had no one was going to give them any trouble. Very, very unlikely, you know, like Ronnie, Chris Cormier, Marcus Ruhl, you know, they're all pigging out on the, I used to see him eating stuff in their faces and ordering burgers. And I used to be sat with them, you know, and, what was I saying? Yeah, and what was I saying?
We're talking about voluptuous muscle on Hassan. Voluptuous.
Yeah, and so I think we're like with Hassan, it's like he's so big, and if he's anyway, Ronnie Coleman. Yeah, so yeah, and I remember Ronnie walking out, and he hit the sort of walk to the stage, and when he stood there relaxed, I was like, God, Ronnie's really been pigging out here. He's really looks like he just, and then he came to the front, and he just did he really took his time to get into each pose, and everything just went like, and it was like, holy shit, you know. And I think he's one of those guys. So unfortunately, he has to be in really, he can't get away with 95% condition. He has to, otherwise he just looks like a blob because he's so big. And you know what, I really liked him, what he's doing now. I like the way he's hitting that frontal bicep with the abs crunched down. I think that looks really good on him. I think it really, like, normally I look at his frontal bicep, I'm like, oh, the waist, it looks bad, and the obliques look puffy, and it looks like it's hanging over, you know. But I tell you what, when he actually crunches the abs down and really sucks down, I think it looks like it was a really good move for him, you know. I mean, so, like, if you can imagine Sean Roden if he didn't have the tilt, or Victor Martinez in their frontal bicep, you know, they kind of make that pose their own. And I think the thing is, the frontal bicep is the first pose as well, so it's that first impression. So I think, I mean, I feel so bad for the guy because I really, really rate him. And he's one of my favorites, actually. I mean, his side chest, his readable bicep. I mean, I think you'd be hard pushed to find anyone in the pro league that really, really beats that clearly. Do you know what I mean? Those two particular poses. I mean, I think he's incredible. And I'm glad that he's got this show to do. And I'm almost, you know, if there's a negative to having a small, weaker lineup, it's that Hassan can at least get his bloody, I mean, obviously if there wasn't this show, or he whatever happened, or he got sick the day before or something, God forbid, I think there'd actually be an argument for him getting a special invite.
I mean, well, they can give a special invite to somebody every year.
Yeah,
somebody's going to get it.
Just say something happened and he couldn't compete this weekend. I would be like, give that guy a special invite, please, God, for God's sake, because he really belongs on the Olympia stage, and the strides he's made in his physique have been significant, I think, and he's just kept on pushing, and I was sad to not see him at the Olympia, so I want to see him back up there, and I'm going to be really happy for him when he wins this weekend.
No, if he wins this weekend, let's not get ahead of ourselves. So Yeah, I'm away, most likely. So let's talk about who could give him a real push. We got Stanimal, Standilongu, who's having a pretty good season so far. Is he a Patrick Tour guy?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, big guy in great condition, not lacking any body parts. He can stand next to, I wouldn't say, when I say stand next to Hassan in terms of size, that's not many people can really do that because he's got such full round muscles. But Stan's not a small guy. Stan can hold his own next to Hassan. Um, I see him as probably taking second place here.
Somebody said to me on, I forget who it was, one of the people in the comments that, constantly comments. I remember this guy, I remember thinking at the time, well, this guy knows his stuff and he thinks that Stan could win this.
Yeah, well,
Just say he comes in absolutely superb and does what Clayhard did and just shocks everyone. And do you think he could actually win it? Do you think he's actually got the tools to beat someone like Hassan? Hassan's not going to be off, but just say Hassan. I don't know. I mean, what are the?
I feel like
Anything
Hassan
could
has
happen.
to be off. I believe Hassan would have to be a little bit off.
Yeah.
Stan's got, because Hassan's got so much muscle, he does suffer in terms of structure to a lot of these guys. He doesn't have the widest clavicles. He doesn't have the most narrow waist, but my God, you've said it before. He's probably pound for pound as thick as Rami or any of these guys. He's
Yeah.
just got when he walks out, it's just like this freakish cartoon character, just packed with muscle. But yeah, in my mind, he would have to be a little bit off. But I'll tell you who the dark horse is for this show. And yes, I am biased. He's from New England, and I do know him. It's Nathan Spear. Nate Spear has only
Oh,
done one pro show. He did the Boston Pro last year. Eighth place doesn't sound very impressive until you realize these were the people that beat him: William Bonac, Justin Rodriguez, Steve Kuklo, Samson Dauda, Max Charles, Phil Clayhar, and Regan Grimes. That was the top seven. Nate
yeah.
came behind. His updates, he's improved his back like they told him to. He's shredded, always, always nails his condition because he knows he has to. He's not going to get a look unless he's just dialed in perfectly. So
Yeah.
Nate Spear from I'd like to say Massachusetts, but it's Massachusetts adjacent, this state called New Hampshire. It's just north. But yeah, Derry, New Hampshire's Nate Spear. That's my dark horse to shock and surprise people this weekend.
Yeah, yeah, because I'll be honest, I haven't really paid as much attention as I should have really to analyzing his physique and looking at his pictures, but there was a few people kind of dropping his name as like, look, Nate's really jumped up this year. He's really improved. And I was thinking, I put him on my list of like people to approach to get on global. And yeah, you've jump started my sort of mind there. Yeah, I think he's one that we could be like one of the guys that kind of swoops in and maybe beat Stan or potentially beat Hassan. I don't know. I don't know whether he's good enough to beat someone like Hassan yet. I don't know, but like it's hard for me to really comment because, like I said, I haven't done my homework on his physique and what he's done in the last year. But he's one of those guys that's yeah, I think he's a bit of a stealth competitor this year. He's going to kind of swoop in like a bit of a ninja. I think he's going to, yeah, he's one. Certainly, I'll be very, very curious to see what he looks like because he is good and he has made improvements. And yeah, I just like I said, I can't offer too much opinion on what he's done because I need to see it for my own eyes first.
Another guy who might surprise people because he took third place in Toronto in 2021. I believe you pronounce this Aaron. It's EIREN, Gauley, GAULEY. 340 pounds off season. I'm guessing he's probably like 280 to 290 on stage. Big dude. Kind of, in my mind, he looks like he could be like Ian Valier's brother or cousin or something. They have a similar look, like most white people do. But third place in Toronto in 2021. He beat Joe Seaman and he beat Stanimal 2 years
Wow.
ago at the Toronto show. So he's no joke. He's a big dude, gets in great shape, very wide structure. He could surprise people too. I don't know if you remember him because I think he's only done two pro shows that I could see. He did Tampa that year too. He didn't do too well in Tampa, but top three in Toronto, not bad.
What's he missing?
Um, it's not he doesn't have the prettiest shape. He's a very big guy, kind of. I wouldn't say blocky. He doesn't have a thick waist. It's just not aesthetically pleasing in some ways. It's just a lot of muscle. Decent structure, just doesn't have the much roundness to the muscles. but he gets in great condition.
Yeah.
Another guy could do well. He's a former 212, moving up to open. Prince Boabang.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he was a 212. He took third place in the Toronto show in 2019. He was fourth place in the 212 at Toronto, at the Vancouver show, this show in 2019 also. So it looks like he's been busy putting some size on. Don't know what he weighs now, but I checked out his Instagram. Very, very full muscle bellies, thick guy. Maybe he's only put on, I say only, 10 pounds of muscle is a lot of muscle, but you know, people freak out like they remember the old ads for like Muscle Tech where guys would add like 50 pounds. So, you know, he could surprise people too, but everybody makes top 6. So in that aspect, but Prince, I
Yeah,
don't know if I remember him as a 212.
he's another one I'll be curious to see, because there's a lot of I like see I we all like, say when I do like, and I guess when I'm global or I do sometimes there's actually more interest in these new guys that are kind of coming up or turned pro 2 or 3 years ago, like Beef Stew. Like I don't really remember, didn't really like pop into my mind when he won the USA's, and he didn't really retain in my mind at the end of last year. Even when he competed at the Tampa the week later, he didn't register as anyone. Oh, this guy you need, because some guys you can see, you can just like oh, what's the guy? Elliot. What's the guy?
Dermond.
Elliot, sorry?
Dermond?
Dermond, yeah. I mean, like,
Yeah.
everyone's just talking about this guy because he's posting these things. He looks like absolute freak of nature. And you can see that unless he does something really stupid, I mean, he's looking incredible 15 weeks out. You know, he's obviously on top of his game. You know, so there's someone that you just know is going to, unless, like I said, he does something stupid, is going to walk away with his pro card this year. And, but then you get these guys that have turned pro, don't really, and then they have competed as a 212 and then they come back as a, like, the guy just won the New York Pro. My mind's gone blank today.
Oh, I got it. Hold on. Tony Burton.
Tonio, yeah. Sorry, of course. Sorry, I've
Okay, I was there.
mine as well. I don't know why. I think it's these crickets that do my. Shut up, bloody cricket. Sorry, my crickets and my lizards. Yeah, like someone like Tonio Burton, when they move up from a 212 to open, and you're not really thinking, oh, this will be good, and then they come out and you're like, holy shit, they really do look good. So he's a guy that really I'm curious to see, because he's got a nice shape. Like you said, you got someone like the guy before, is Eamon, who's big, shredded, but doesn't have the nice shape. This guy will probably be smaller, probably not in the same sort of condition, but has got a beautiful shape. So it'd be interesting to see which one kind of does better of the two. But yeah, this Prince, yeah, I remember him. I remember he dropped off social media a little bit in the last, or maybe just on my feed in the last year or so, but I remember seeing him quite frequently and thinking, what a beautiful physique, what a lovely shape, nice round, nice lines, nice symmetry. So yeah, it's gonna be nice to see some new faces.
Another new face, because I apologize for not looking him up to see what he looked like. Morgan McDonald from Canada. Wish him the best. Don't know anything about you, sir, but after this weekend, I'm sure I'll know exactly what you look like and how good you are. So this is actually a 2-day show. You can go to vanproshow.com for pay-per-view and all that. So the judging is going to be held. So Vancouver is on the same time as Pacific Coast PST in the US. So tomorrow, today's Friday, yeah. So as we're doing this is going to be released today. Judging is going to be held at 9 a.m. for the open bodybuilders, for the pro show. I'm sorry, because it's also being held with an amateur show. So tomorrow, noon my time is going to be the judging for the pros, and then tomorrow Sunday night they're spreading it out over 2 days night. So I'm going to be doing some coverage, guys. Saturday I'll do a wrap up of the judging. Sunday I'll do a results in the final. And all you Hassan Mustafa fans, I'm hoping you get a very, very positive outcome. I hope your guy wins. We love Hassan. We're rooting for him. Everyone deserves a fair shot, but I mean, Hassan, we want to see Hassan in the Olympia. We want to see him after two runner-ups. Runner-up, Flex really used to tell me second place is the worst.
Yeah.
To him, it was like worse than last place, because you almost had it. You're standing there with that one other guy. You're like, don't call my name. Don't call. Oh, they called my name. I as an amateur, I got so many second places, and it was the worst, because you're like, you got so close.
I'm going to start a Hassan Mustafa conspiracy Facebook group chat. If he doesn't win this and he wins it, like literally second he walks on stage and it's a foregone conclusion and he's literally just phoning it in, I'm going to start believing in like flat Earth and moon landings and and all this 9/11 fakery and stuff like that. It's seriously, if he doesn't win this, because like this, God, well, I've just said what I said earlier on about Hassan. I think he's absolutely incredible. But can we just address the elephant in the room here?
Which one?
Why there's two here for this Vancouver? Why don't more Americans compete in Canadian shows? Because I noticed it with the Toronto, and also all these like the complaints that fans and whatever make people in the industry make, that there's so many too many pro cards given out, 20 at a show, 30 at this show, and yet we've got 6 competitors in an open show. Now, is that to do with more the fact it's the open and more guys are now jumping into classic or 212 and they've got more other platforms like men's physique to sort of, that's where the numbers are all being divided up against through? Or is it just because, well, I don't know. You tell me why.
I mean, if I had to take a wild guess why more Americans aren't doing these Canadian shows, there's only 2 Canadian shows. You will see more of them in Toronto because it's a short flight. It's most Americans live on the northeast part of the country. It's
Yeah.
just geographically easier. Vancouver's all the way across the country. And I think there are so many shows to choose from. This month, in the next few weeks, we have Chicago Pro, we have Tampa Pro, we have Texas Pro. I think a lot of Americans see those as getting more publicity, especially Tampa and Texas. Those are going to be some big shows. We got guys like Andrew Jack and Hunter. We got some big names popping into these shows. So I think they want to be in the shows where the eyeballs are going to be, where the coverage is going to be. And, I don't know. Vancouver, great show. I mean, that's where Hadi Choopan really established himself as someone that everybody had to worry about. And he ended up winning the Olympia a couple of years after that, obviously.
That 2019 Vancouver Hadi, I mean, that was like a holy shit moment in bodybuilding, wasn't it? Like 2003 when 2003 Ronnie walked out, and 93 Dorian walked out. It was like it was like one of those moments that you'll never forget, and everything just fell into place. I think if you'd have brought that to the Olympia in 2019, you'd have won the Olympia that year.
Also, it had a black backdrop in 2019.
Yeah.
Where everybody's like, why can't we just have black backdrops? And it did showcase. And he had what, dodgy delts? What? No dodgy delts.
Weren't dodgy. That's
dodgy.
the point.
Yeah. We got to do a whole show about dodgy delts and stripy delts. That'd be a great show. Let's please make a note of that. But because
yeah, but what was I gonna say? Yeah, so I don't understand why. I feel bad. I think it's sorry. Like, say you're talking about Chicago, Tampa, Texas. Surely when the competitors who are getting ready for those 1 or 3 shows, or any of those 3 shows, surely when they got a whiff of how many and what the kind of standard of competition was going to be like at the Vancouver, why didn't they just think, do you know what, I need to drop the carbs a little extra this week and I'm going to jump in this one? Like, you think about what happened at the Arnold with the bump up in prize money, guys jumping in. So it can happen. I'm surprised that when they found out the numbers were low and who was doing it, I'm surprised you didn't get like Hunter thinking, oh no, I'm not just singling out Hunter, but any of those top Blessing, Andrew Jack didn't think, you know what, I could go and swoop in and get another win here.
I was updating because I was looking at the competitor list and I kept looking at it because that's what I fully expected. I said, I bet a few more guys jump in. If I'm a pro and I'm in shape if I'm getting ready for a show that's a week or 2 later and I see, oh my gosh, there's 6 guys here and, there's only really one of them that's an Olympia caliber guy, I could jump in here and probably do pretty well. I fully expected 2, 3, 4 guys to jump in. And as of this morning, I didn't see anybody added to it.
I mean, you've got Clayhart. I mean, like Phil Clayhart, he's getting ready for the Masters Olympia. He's still on prep. If I was him, I would have jumped in. I think, well, I beat Hassan the other week, and what's the worst? I'm going to get 2nd place and pick up some more prize money. I just don't understand why these guys don't want to compete, because you say Vancouver it's still on the same landmass, American Canada, as far as I know. Am I correct?
It is. Yeah, you're right.
It's not like flying from here to bloody Australia. I don't understand why these guys aren't doing more shows. I mean, Milos really needs to sit down and have a pep talk with these guys, because could you tell me if Milos was competing today, he wouldn't have jumped in, he wouldn't be driving now to Vancouver to go and compete?
Milos always says, gladiators, what is your profession? Because if you're a pro bodybuilder, why aren't you competing more? Because he did what, like 1,000 shows, 10,000? No, he did like 8. He did about 80 pro shows, didn't he? Something like that.
Yeah, it was something. I think from whatever year to whatever year. I think he said he did every single pro show. I mean, it was like that. Just, I mean, that's incredible. I mean, that's pretty incredible. That's pretty incredible. So I
Well,
don't know why. I just I don't. And also, and one other thing is, I think this was something the British promoter struggled with a few years ago when he came on promoting pro shows. He thought that each country's competitors would do their each country pro show. He just automatically assumed you're British, you're going to want to do the British Grand Prix. You're
right.
French, you'll want to do a French show. And it's funny because so many bodybuilders just go by. They don't care about whether it's in Australia or whether it's at the bottom of their street. They go for more the date. They're more guided by the date and how it fits. What their main goal. But like, I'm surprised. I mean, there's no how many. I mean, how many? Is there any Canadians in this show?
Oh
Not
yeah.
one.
Oh
One.
yeah. In the Vancouver show. So is Stan Canadian? No, it stands from Belle, France, isn't he?
Yeah.
Stanimal. So Prince is Canadian,
Okay.
Aaron's Canadian, and Morgan's Canadian. So half the lineup, 3 out of the 6 guys. It's just, yeah. I mean, I don't understand. If I was a pro and I was in shape and I saw that list, I'd be like, oh man, yeah. I'd be call up. It's Michelle Crack. I'm like, hey Michelle, put me in there. I'm doing your show. I'll be there.
Yeah.
Give
And
me the
then
info.
you've got the guys from the New York Pro, all from. I think Steve Weinberger really pushes them and says, come and support me, And I think maybe because they like, you get bodybuilders within not even a country but a state that sees the pride and the benefit to, and also like it is tricky if you've never traveled and competed before. But there's guys, like with shows in there, not just their own country but their own state, and they go and do a show the other side of the world because it's 3 weeks later and it fits the diet better. I don't. It's something I'd like. I think it's something I'm going to ask. Maybe drop in like regularly with Globe Muscle. I think it was something I'm going to ask these competitors because, personally, like when I like on a lower level, when I was like doing regional, when I was competing with NABA years ago, it was like everyone did that show because it was local and it was, all the friends and family could be there, and it was I don't know, it was part of why you wanted to do the show. It was that experience. Sorry, I've
Well, I
rambled
mean,
on.
I can say
Go
that
rant for the week.
the one show that I do see that pattern expressed perfectly, the New York Pro, there's
Yeah.
always a ton of Northeast USA competitors in that show. Always. As everybody growing, every bodybuilder from New England area, from New York, New Jersey, they all want to do New York Pro at some point. They all want to win the New York Pro. So maybe yeah, I don't know. That's one of the few shows I know that it's a lot of local people and the audience is packed with their friends and family. It's the way
Yeah.
it should be, I would think. But
I mean, I was speaking of Brian because I'm a good friend, obviously, with Brian Bullman, the Irish promoter. Like he couldn't get his head around how he'd put on like a 212, and then he put on classic. He had 15 really good competitors, and there wasn't a single Irish classic competitor in the show. And he was like, I don't get it. He said, I speak to these Irish competitors all through the year. He said, and like you ring them and they're like, oh no, I'm off season now, or I'm switching to open, or I'm but the reason is like it's a pro show in your country where your friends and your family can come and support you, and you're going and competing in freaking New Zealand or Africa or something.
wouldn't you? I mean, wouldn't you think there'd be some element of national pride? Like if I'm an Irish classic pro,
Yeah.
classic physique pro, I'd want to be the guy who won. I wouldn't want some guy from, I don't know, Korea or Zimbabwe to take the title. Like this is Ireland. I'm going to win. Me. What do I know?
Also, sorry, one last thing before you move on is
Yeah.
I've been hyping it up a little bit in my MD column in the magazine, and I wrote about Samson and Nathan Diasha.
Yeah.
You've got Nathan Diasha returning, and by all accounts, he's looking and feeling great. His biceps are healed; they look great. And obviously, he was the undisputed king of UK bodybuilding 2 years ago. I mean, 9 pro wins. I mean, you list them all; they're all over the world. Do you know what I mean? New York Pro, bloody British Grand Prix. Italy. I mean, he won shows all over the year, all over the world. And then obviously we've seen whilst Nathan was out, Samson just went to a whole. God, those crickets are going for it, guys. Calm it down. Well, I'm going to feed him to a tarantula later.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, and then obviously Samson's done what he's done. So really now it's things are balancing out. So it'll be interesting to see in the next year who actually prevails as the king of UK bodybuilding, because you've got Samson with his 2 wins, but he's got an Arnold Classic,
Well,
and then you've got Nathan with his 9 pro wins. So it's going to be
well,
on
let's.
paper.
I mean,
What do you think?
Nathan's most likely going to win a show and qualify for the Olympia this year. He's very good. He's got a great chance of winning one of these European shows or whatever. Doesn't matter. He's that good. I think at the Olympia, when we see Samson and Nathan, so if Samson places, let's say, 3rd place at the Olympia this year, and Nathan places, I'm just throwing numbers out. Let's say he's 6th place or something.
Yeah.
In your mind, would that make Samson the best British bodybuilder right now?
You're throwing the question back to me.
Yeah. I mean, if he beats him at the Olympia.
Yeah, but I suppose it comes down. See, this is what makes it easy for fans to gauge how good somebody is. Literally, we go on pretty much. We're lazy. We go by not how many pro shows they've won, what level of pro show they've won, and how fast their careers come up, and what adversities they've had to overcome. It comes down to basically where you're at the Olympia. If you're 8th place in the Olympia, you're the 8th. You can say I am the 8th best bodybuilder in the world. It doesn't matter if you've won 50 pro shows or 1 pro show. They don't count, because those pro shows only lead to the Olympia anyway. So, what would you rather? That's why I asked you this before a few weeks ago. I said, what would you rather, 9 pro wins or an Arnold Classic title?
A classic title.
No, you didn't even hesitate.
No, I mean, these other shows, it's great that you won them, but, and I don't want to, I'm not going to use any specific examples, but the top 2 shows in the world are the Arnold, and then the ultimate level is the Olympia. That's the ultimate proving ground. It's the best bodybuilders in the world every year. So that really tells you where you stand, unless you like mess up your peak or your prep or something. But if you take 8th, like you said, you can legitimately say, if you take 8th place at the Olympia, I am the 8th best bodybuilder in the world right now. Whereas you can't say that by saying, well, I have this many pro wins. People say, well, who was in the show? How many guys did you beat? What caliber were they? You can get into it's a lot dodgier once you get into all that. What are you going on a cricket hunt? What are you doing over there? Hey, you froze on me, dude.
Yeah, so what would you do? And thing is, there's real value in an amount of pro shows, isn't there? So yeah. Oh well, that's interesting. Yeah. Sorry, I was another one of my thoughts popped into my head. You can still hear those crickets, can't you?
I haven't heard one cricket, but my hearing is atrocious. Really? So yeah, my hearing is awful.
I'm worried that people will be annoyed by it when they're listening to it, So yeah. I'm used to it.
So I wanted to wrap up this episode of Power Hour with an idea that you had, something that we should do on a fairly regular basis, called the Unsung Heroes of Bodybuilding. And this includes people, industry figures, media people, reporters, athletes, whoever. But I think the first person we should really feature and talk about is Peter McGough. The late Peter McGough, God rest his soul, was such an important part of the bodybuilding world for decades and decades. Someone that can never be replaced, can never be imitated. You knew him so much better than I did. I'm very grateful that I got to know him toward the end of his life, in the years that he was with MD. All the years he was editor-in-chief of Flex for years. All those years he was with Weider. I always wished I could work with this guy. And I thought, well, unless I somehow could work for Weider, it's never going to happen, because he's Flex and we're MD, and, or it's like butting heads and Coca-Cola versus Pepsi.
Yeah.
And, I always sensed that he was just his writing just enthralled me. He was an amazing writer. The way he would work in the puns and his vocabulary, he really, those were the days when you could do a 12, 15 page contest report in a magazine. We don't even do that anymore because people want the results now, but he did such a fantastic job, not only with the profiles and interviews with the athletes, where you really got to know the athlete on a personal level, but his contest reports, I felt like I was there. And this was a day, there was no pay-per-view back then. You got pictures in a magazine. Maybe a few months later, maybe you could buy a video of it off GMV or something. But for the most part, all we had to rely on were the photos and the text, the written reports. And Peter was the very best at that. We say unsung hero because he was behind the scenes. He never wanted to be in the spotlight. He always wanted the athletes to get the recognition, the fame. he did such a great job with, Dorian was obviously the first guy that he helped launch the career of in terms of publicity, chronicling Dorian from the very beginning. But he did that for so many athletes over the years, and just he was selfless. He didn't care about the recognition for himself or anything like that. Man, you could talk more about him because you were privileged enough to know him so much better than I was.
When I did that, it was in season 4 of Globe Muscle. I did a Peter McGough tribute episode, and
Mm,
I had Kevin Navrone, Chris Cormier, Dorian Yates, and Bob Chick.
wow.
Like, hell of a lineup, and none of them obviously, because I went to them and I said, please, it's for Peter, and they went yes instantly, and they were really easy in organizing for times when normally they're a little bit tougher to nail down and stuff. They were like, no, tell me time and day, whatever, we'll do it for Peter. And it was funny hearing those, speaking to, especially Chris. Chris was like telling me stories I wasn't even aware of. I didn't realize, like, I knew that he was there for Dorian, and I knew that him and Dorian were close, just like Kevin Horton was with Dorian. I was his photographer, and he had his writer, and they all their careers kind of grew together. The photographer, the writer, the bodybuilder, all at the same time that things exploded. And yeah, like hearing stories about like Chris Coleman, like a lot of these bodybuilders, they've got dramas going on in their personal lives, and like we all do, and at various times in our life, and just hearing like Chris said, oh, one time I rang Peter at 2 a.m. and I was having some crisis, and he said, and like the things he did for people that like are unsung. We never got to hear these stories. They never made it to the magazine, but all these kind of little things that they did, that they didn't do for, like nowadays, sometimes people, it's all virtue signaling, like giving a $10 to a homeless person. There's a picture of me doing that,
Yeah.
But he did it because he's just like he was just a really selfless person that really, really cared about everyone. I mean, I could go on and on for an hour about the things he did for me, I mean, like when I stopped working for MD in 2013, I joined Flex magazine for 2 years. Like, he wasn't working for Flex anymore, and he said, I got some features of I think it was William Bonac. That was the one that pops into my mind. And he said, look, he said, Giles, just between you and me, so just send me those articles and I'll edit it for you.
Wow.
I was like, really? Like, he says, yeah, I'll put on red, as if like I was your editor, and I'm sending it to you, and I'll send it back to you with any amendments, and I'll put the reasons why. And that obviously helps you to become a better writer, because you then learn what they want, and all these little tips. And he did that kind of, and he said, look, just keep it between you and me. And I was like, yeah, of course. But stuff like that, I mean,
Yeah.
he was incredible. And he was such a good writer. And I mean, I started following the sport in 1990. I remember I was just training legs in Hereford. And this was I was like, what was I, 14, 15 years old? No, 15, it was 91 it was. And I got a picture, a copy of the pumping press. And it was the front page. It was the side tricep of Dorian. He just won the Night of Champions.
Yeah.
So think about it. I just started getting interested in following bodybuilding as a fan at the time when Dorian Yates won his first pro show. When all these, like, you go to the bodybuilding, there'd be like 8 magazines, and I remember picking up the pumping press, and it was just so. It was the only magazine I think I've ever read every single word of, from cover to cover. Even the ISBN number, I was bloody the barcode, I think I read, what I mean? It was so much, there was so much love and passion put into that. It just shone through. And I remember, in fact, it was that 1991 Olympia show report that he did that got him the attention of Joe Weider, which then obviously was that break, the big break that took him from that office above Rumbelows, the bloody washing machine bloody place in Nottingham, and they were
Yeah.
literally told me the stories when I stayed at his house after the Tampa in 2017. He ordered pizza and we had wine, and Ian Harrison picked me up from the hotel, dropped me off, and obviously me and Peter stayed up till like 1, 2 in the morning outside by the swimming pool, and he was telling me all these stories, and I was in heaven, and yeah, it was really good. But there was Olympia that was written. I think that was out a week after the Olympia.
Yeah. Yeah. He was
Full
the
Olympia report.
innovator. That was a time when the regular magazines, it was like 6 weeks
Yeah.
to see any coverage, and he had this tabloid format that he could rush it out, and he got full reports with photos in a week, where everyone
I mean,
else, you wouldn't.
imagine you having to write a full issue of MD and have it out a week after the Olympia. Imagine if Steve said to you, right, okay, then there's no other writers. Giles is having a month off. So-and-so is having a month off. You've got to write the entire magazine, and we've got to have it so it comes out a week after the Olympia. Like,
Wow.
he did it himself. He did all, and Anne used to do the advertising, and she'd take care of everything, and they'd be running around and doing the layouts, and
Yeah.
I mean, talk about, and it was that because obviously he used to send out the copies of the newspaper to various people around the world, and Joe Weider was like, oh, what's this?
Mhm.
Looked at it and just like, and I think the thing he said the thing that he liked about Peter was his British humor.
Yes.
That was the thing he liked. That was the thing he liked. He liked that kind of because Peter was hilarious. I mean, he was just
You know, I see glimmers of that in you all the time when I'm reading your stuff. It just gives me flashbacks to Peter because he had his own unique style and you have your own unique style, but the sense of humor it's the same flavor. It's the same. I get the same feel from it. I just want to thank. I don't know if I've said it before, but when I took this job, I had already been working for MD as a freelancer, independent contractor for many years, but January 2017, I was offered this job as online editor. I did not want it, did not want it. I said,
he said
that's too much. I said, I just want to be a writer. Leave me alone. I don't want to deal with all this
that.
video stuff and going to every contest. And I just felt like I couldn't do it. It was overwhelming. And I didn't feel like I was right. I was prepared to do the job. And Peter, I don't know if I called him or who called, he was always available to talk. He was just very, very giving with his time.
Yeah.
And he really helped me so much. He said, you can do it. He talked me down from the ledge and said, no, you're fully capable. You can do it. Just, this, that. And he made me feel a lot, he restored my confidence. And I don't know if I don't know if I would have quit the job because, I could have just gone back to being a writer, but he was just very instrumental. He was always so supportive. If I ever had issues with occasionally I would have trouble with a feature or something. And and he would always have perfect advice for me because he was like the father figure to us. He was like we call it the OG. He's the one who's been doing this. He'd been doing this for decades before we were.
He was very encouraging and very supporting, and like you said, like the next generation, like people like you and myself, like the next generation of writers. He was always so like I have it at least, I'd say at least once a year where I go through like a crisis of confidence, and I have like imposter syndrome, and like I'm on a really good run at the moment. The last few weeks I've been really, I feel really, really happy with what I'm putting out, and I feel really confident again, and I'm sharp, and I'm doing global, and I feel like really engaged in the moment, and I'm thinking, yeah, and then all of a sudden something can happen. Nothing even has to happen. You can just have it once a year, twice a year, where you kind of something knocks you off, and you start doubting yourself, and someone like Peter was. Like I remember when I left MD in 2013, and it kind of really affected my confidence. And I remember, and because I was with Flex magazine within 2 weeks, they called me up to the offices, and I said, it's really knocked my confidence. And he says, no, he says, go to the meeting at the Flex, at the Harrogate, which is not far from. And he says, Martin Chaffetz and all the people and all the, in the boardroom and stuff. And he says, and he was like that. He was like, you can do this, you're good, just any support, any advice, and it wasn't like sort of any support and advice and you just know it's just words. It was like, no, he meant it. And he always followed through on that, and I think sometimes we do need, like, I'll be honest, there's situations we constantly find ourselves in the industry where you're dealing with athletes and you're dealing with people in the industry. And sometimes you can come up against a bit of conflict or something, or you're a bit unsure of how to handle a situation. And sometimes your ego gets in the way, or sometimes you get a bit impatient or a bit pissed off. And sometimes, and when I get to that point where I think, okay, I'm not sure I know immediately how to handle this, I do actually think, and I sit and I calm and I really like meditate on it. I think, what would Peter do? How would Peter respond to this? And it always gives me like a classy answer and way of handling stuff. And so everything doesn't kind of go to shit overnight, it's like, because you need that sort of calm guiding, that professionalism and that humility and that kind of and I think Peter definitely left his mark in the industry. I mean, I like the fact that we're still talking about him with such passion now, and it's like he's still prominent. I mean, I still speak to Anne, I'd say at least once or twice a month.
Yeah.
I stay in regular contact, and because I wanted it, because she's back in America now, and because she was selling the house, but she was back at Nottingham, which is only about an hour and a half away. And I said to her, I said, look, I want to come over again. I said, because I want to go to Wollerton Hall, Wayne Manor.
Oh yeah.
You know, the Batman trilogy, because
Yeah, yeah.
it's literally a 5-minute drive away from her house. And the last time I went, when I went to the Peter tribute there, like a gathering after he died, the place was shut. I just missed it by about 20 minutes because I wanted a selfie of me outside but yeah, and I still stay in contact with her. And yeah, like I said, he definitely left his mark on the industry, and he was one of a kind, and definitely an unsung hero.
Yeah. And when you say he was one of the good guys, he was the best guy.
Yeah, yeah.
There was really no one better. You'll never hear anyone speak ill of him. He was he was selfless. He had no ego. He was just giving. He always wanted the best for the athletes. Whoever he was working for, he wanted to do the best job for them. He was an amazing individual, talented writer, and just a wonderful, warm human being. So we'll never forget you, Peter.
And I got to be in his office. That was a real thrill because, like, when I was with Rosie back in 2017, and she did the Tampa show, and the next day, the next morning, Ian Harrison picked us up, and we got an hour and a half to Peter's house, and I was like, where is it then? He says, what? I said, well, your office, where the magic happens. And I've got the photos. I'll send them to Jen so she can edit them in.
Oh, wow.
And when I walked in, and you see like this picture of him with his hand on my shoulder, and I love that picture because it's like he's looking at me as like the next generation, is like, it's all on you now, son.
Yeah,
But and it was nice him showing me, like, when he did the London Marathon in 80 or 81, 81, I think it was. And all his, and I was looking at all his magazines and obviously all his awards, and I saw this stuff framed on the wall of things he'd been given by the IFBB, and I was like, all his accolades, but I got to sort of sit in the chair, and then he kind of talked me through. He says, I don't, like he said about his articles, he said, I don't do these things quickly. He says, I'll go back over it 20, 30 times. Like literally, you and me, like, okay, done. It's
and
yeah, no, but we all have our own different styles of writing. In fact, him instilling that confidence in me got me a more efficient writer. It gave me more confidence to be myself, like not write. I remember I wrote an article for Muscle Mag, and I hated it because I tried to write in the style of, you or somebody else, and it comes in, even though it's written well, it's not authentic, and you feel like you're cheating yourself. You're not being authentic to your true self. And I think Peter definitely taught me. He says, look, just don't be afraid. Don't always have the confidence to be yourself. Don't try to write like me or Ron or anybody else, or what's the flex writer? Greg Merritt, because I really, you're my favorite writers. And he said, like, just have the confidence to be yourself, and then just, see where it hits. He said, because people can smell inauthenticity, if that's a word.
I think they call it finding your voice as a writer. And
yeah, and it makes you. The thing is, you don't, like, you can sit down there and then you can just hammer it out, and it's exactly your words, and because sometimes I think when you think about something too much, or you think you're too conscious, sometimes you don't put out your best work. So that's something that Peter definitely taught me.
So yeah, I mean, you could show me a paragraph that Peter had written, and not knowing who it was, and I would know in an instant that's Peter McGough.
Yeah, exactly.
Very, very recognizable style and voice, prose, the way he wrote, you knew it was him, and he was inimitable. There's never going to be another Peter McGough.
It's like with the good photographers in the industry are the ones that if you show me a photo, I can spot who took it. Right. Straight away. Even contest pictures where they're all sat in the same row at the press row, I could tell you.
I can't do that.
Probably 98% accuracy who took it, and it should be the same with writers as well.
Yeah, well, you're good. I can do that with their studio work. I can't do that with the contest stuff. I go, yeah, that's Lund, that's Nephew, that's Pear, that's Robert Reef, that's Jason Breeze, but I could never do it with the contest stuff. So,
and thing is, you've worked with. I mean, I've worked with Pear. Kevin Horton, that's pretty much it in terms of photographers as a writer, but you've worked with nearly all of them actually, on site.
Well, unless they were working for, I never worked for Weider, so I didn't get to work with Lund or Horton, but yeah, everybody else pretty much. Nephew for many years.
Awesome.
Pear obviously for many years, but yeah, so this guy's, we have a couple people in mind, but if you have suggestions for us who you feel unsung heroes, either competitors or people in the industry, leave them in the comments. We'll carefully consider those because we want to make this a regular thing to give some recognition to people that have really made this sport in this industry so much better. They brought something to it that wasn't there before, and they added to it and made the sport better for all of us in their own unique way.
I mean,
with
you
their
and me.
contributions.
Sorry, I thought you finished.
That's it.
And also, like you and me talked before about, like, should we just? I thought at first, I thought, okay, we'll reel off 5 names in like 2 minutes, and then you said, like, well, no, let's just do 1, maybe 2 maximum, and give them the proper time to, like we've just done here with Peter, and really kind of go into detail, and so we can really kind of tell proper stories, and also not just personal accounts, but accounts of what we've heard from people like Chris Cormier, who said, yeah, Peter was there for me when I was going through crises for this, and like personal stuff that really he could have said, this is beyond the professional, boundaries, this, keep me out of your private life. It's like maybe, they'd be entitled to say, but no, they didn't. They never turned people away. And I think that's, I think that's really testament to their just their humanity and their kindness as well as human beings.
Absolutely. So that will do it for this episode of MD Power Hour plus like 10 minutes. I think we went.
Yeah.
So that's okay. Sometimes we go a little under. If you guys have suggestions for us, of course, that's why we love the comments. We love your feedback, positive and negative. We take it all into consideration. Of course, please, make it all positive. Be nice to us. Subscribe to the channel. If you like these videos, like them, share them on your social media platforms. Turn on notifications on the bell thing here and also on your telephone. Very important, so you know when we have new content. We just put out this morning, as we're speaking, a new Buff Bombshell episode with someone named Foxy.
Christine Fox.
Christine Fox. I just heard Foxy and I was all set.
Do you know what her Instagram is?
Foxy something, man. I tagged her on the.
No, Fanny Fox Meh.
Fanny Fox, man.
Brilliant.
Okay. Yeah. So check that out. That is on this channel. If you missed the MD Global Muscle with Andrea Presti's winning interview, Max Charles, and who's the third guy?
That's a very good question.
You had 3 people. Where's my phone? It was a great episode.
You can't throw that at me. Hang on. Shaaban, Mohammed Shaaban.
Oh, Mohammed Shaaban. So yeah, check that out, guys. That's on this channel.
And I tell you what, Derek's really finding his voice now.
Derek
with bloody hot news. He is like, because he's always, when you're with someone and you like, I speak to him in the gym all the time, and you have these great conversations, and then you think, oh, I'd love to get him in the studio, and then you get him on camera, and they've replaced him with somebody else that's shy and doesn't have anything to say and stumbling over their words, and I was thinking, oh, that's a real shame, because some people, when they get a camera on them, they turn into something different. You want like you and me are talking now, like we talk when we're in the restaurant or the hotel in Vegas, and we're working together. It's exactly the same. But recently, the last few weeks, he's really kind of getting into the hot news thing. And also he's jumping in sometimes. I wouldn't say butting in. He's jumping in. Like I was getting up, adjusting the lighting on Max Charles on one of the cameras. And then Derek jumped in. So I had to edit me leaning over, adjusting the camera, because it was a really good question. So he's really finding his voice. I think it's with the hot news, because the hot news now, the back and forth, he's not a producer. He's like a co-host, Wow. So he's really great. I've seen it. If you notice it, if you watch it regularly the last few weeks, and it's hilarious. I mean, that stuff about I call it the sex honey of Max Charles. Have you seen it? Watch it.
No, I haven't watched Max
Charles interview, this new product that Max has got, this product and
sex honey.
It's funny because I thought it came to a tube, and I said, so I didn't know that you drank it. I thought I thought you applied it. I thought it was well, when he said jelly, royal jelly, I thought jelly with a
some sort of lubricant or something. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And Derek thought I meant something else, because obviously he's a church man, so I didn't really. I thought he's a bit, he's not as maybe. Was open to those kind of things as, discussing, certainly. Sure. And it's very funny to see it's funny because we talk about it in hot news as well. And Derek's reaction is priceless. So please check it out.
Check that out, guys. All right. Well, that is going to wrap it up for this episode of MD Power Hour with me, Ron Harrison, Giles Tiger Thomas.
And
the crickets in the background. So we will be back for another one next week. Please be sure to join us. And thanks for watching. Have a great weekend. Hey, did you like that video? Smash that like button, subscribe to MD, and please comment down below. Thanks for watching.